Tea is the second most consumed beverage in the world after water. From sugary Turkish rizi tea to salty Tibetan butter tea, there are almost as many ways of preparing the beverage as there are cultures on the globe. Tea has a rich history that started over 6,000 years ago, and since that, tradition of tea ceremonies spread around the world and became a centerpiece of many cultures and nations. Much like punch or cocktails, tea is a vehicle for bringing people together. The combination of tea and spirit is not a novelty, and people were mixing wines, spices, and teas from ancient Greek times to Roman Empire and nowadays. Of course, it is worth mentioning that tea is an essential ingredient in the original punch created by British sailors in 1600s. They mixed rum, sugar, and citrus and flavored the mixture with spices in teas that they acquired during their voyages. It was served hot or cold and essentially became a prototype of the entire cocktail culture that we know now.
Hi everybody, my name is Egor Polonsky. I'm your host, aka the main nerd, and welcome to the corner. The Nerd Corner. As you probably have guessed, today we're going to talk about teas. The diversity of tea world makes it my favorite ingredient to use in the cocktails, and during times I need a break from coffee, it's just nice to pour yourself a delicious cup of hot Ceylon tea on a 100 degrees Fahrenheit Las Vegas day. Just kidding. In summertime, I prefer refreshing iced berry tea, or an uplifting glass of fermented English breakfast tea, also known as kombucha. For any occasion and to match any variety of flavors, my household has at least 20 to 30 teas stocked at a time. Tea to me means travel. Different kind of teas I associate with different places around the world. Taking a sip or enjoying a cocktail with Earl Grey brings me to the rivers of India. Chamomile makes me think about pyramids of Egypt. And agua de Jamaica, cold hibiscus tea infused with other fruits, travels me to Mexico. In fact, there's so much to talk about teas that I decided to split this episode into two parts. In the first week, we're going to talk about the history and the family of the black teas. So if you're ready, let's roll the footage.
Archaeological evidence suggests tea was first cultivated in China as early as 6,000 years ago. That original Chinese tea plant is the same type that's grown around the world today, yet it was originally consumed very differently. It was eaten as vegetable or cooked with grain porridge. Tea only shifted from food to drink 1500 years ago when people realized that a combination of heat and moisture could create a complex and varied taste out of leafy green. The standard became to heat tea, pack it in portable cakes, grind it into powder, mix with hot water, and create a beverage called muocha or matcha. In the 9th century, a Japanese monk brought the first tea plant to Japan, where eventually developed into unique rituals leading to the creation of Japanese tea ceremony. China still held a virtual monopoly on the world's tea trees, making tea one of the 3 essential Chinese export goods, along with porcelain and silk. This gave China a great deal of power and economic influence as tea drinking spread around the world. Tea was extremely expensive, but in high demand. At the time, Great Britain was in the middle of expanding its colonial influence and becoming the new dominant world power. And as Great Britain grew, interest in tea spread around the world. All European countries were racing to bring their tea back to Europe first to maximize their profits. Brits commissioned botanist Robert Fortune to steal tea from China in covert operation. He disguised himself and took a precious journey through China's mountainous regions, eventually smuggling tea trees and experienced tea workers into Darjeeling, India. From there, the plant spread further still, helping drive tea's rapid growth as an everyday commodity.
Hello, this is Leo Kukidi. I'm the owner of Tea and Whisk here at Tea Bar in Henderson, Nevada. The way that tea made actually has changed over the years, because you gotta remember, tea has been around for 2,000 years, right? You can pick the tea, you clean it, you control the moisture level of the leaf. You know, the withering process is really critical. It's usually basically to control the amount of moisture in the leaves. A lot of time it's the experience of the tea farmer, just by smelling the leaf, touching the leaf, pressing the leaf, and as simple as that. That's the difference between a really expert tea farmer and somebody that just basically learned from a book and trying to create a tea. And then there's a step where they control the oxidation. Oxidation is a critical thing in making tea. If there's no oxidation, if they stop the oxidation right after they pick, that becomes a green tea. If they control it to about 20% oxidation, that's become an oolong. At 20%, it's still kind of green. So some people will call it a green oolong. Or if it's an 80%, it's kind of black and oolong, so we call it the red oolong. And I think that's the interesting thing about the good quality tea. There's a lot of detail that people never really talk about. When we're thinking about the mass-produced tea, a lot of times they skip a lot of these things. You know, they have a big farm, a lot of time underpaid staff, underpaid farmers. So quality is never really the most important. It's about quantity. The good quality tea, they usually handpick a lot of times. In China, they actually have been many generations, and they have the skill of knowing what kind of weather that is perfect for what type of tea. You know, like not every year it's going to be good for black tea. Some years are better making oolong, some years are making green tea, and some years are better making black tea. There are vintage years for certain oolong, like 2012, for example, it makes a great white tea. So a lot of the 2012 white tea is kind of precious. But 2014 is not that great. Last year, it wasn't a good year to make an oolong. So what ended up happening is they all making a black tea instead. So tea that you get outside, they usually not a full leaf. And a lot of time they will sell the good one, and then they filter it, and then whatever they drop, it's almost the final, the CTC version of it. That's when they blend it together with some kind of flavoring. Because the tea itself, a lot of times, because it's powdery, it's already chopped, just like any herbal or any spice. When you chop those things, the oil came out. So when the oil came out, it become more astringent, it become more bitter, and the flavor is gonna get stale over time. So it's possible that you're going to buy a tea that doesn't even have any flavor of that tea, but there's a lot of flavor of fruits, a lot of flavor of herbal that is added into it. There's a lot of like artificial oil that added to it, and people are just okay with it. Even if it's a full leaf, just because a tea is full leaf doesn't mean it's always good quality. That's the tricky part too. A lot of tea vendors that actually took advantage of that, because you can get a really cheap full leaf tea from China, from India, that is not that good, but they're able to convince people, look how beautiful my leaf is, it's fully intact. But that's not all, I mean, that's only part of the story, you know? Like I said, the experience of the tea farmer is critical.